It's time for another episode of Espresso Yourself with Chuck. And now, coming to the mic, your host, Mr. Chuck Knapp.
Hey, as we start the new program, Espresso Yourself with Chuck, we are going back into the archives today because we're talking about business in the month of November, among other things. But today, we're going to talk with an entrepreneur, someone who was in the military, got out, and was looking for the next opportunity. And so I'm really pleased to be able to share his story with you on this episode of Espresso Yourself with Chuck. I'm very pleased to have Pat Grogan with us today. You've probably seen at least his face around town on orange and blue trucks if you live in the Topeka area. So we're really pleased to have you, Pat, today to tell us about your career journey, if you will, and spending some time with our students. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Can you just tell us a little bit about growing up, kind of what you thought when you were growing up you might do later in life, and maybe just that career journey, why you made some of the decisions you did, and eventually how you got to where you are now, owning a really successful business in the Topeka area.
Well, thank you. So growing up, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was lost as lost could be. Grew up in Binghamton, New York. Parents divorced at an earlier age. Kind of a tough environment to grow up in, alcoholic father, all that good stuff. And dropped out of high school in 10th grade. So my second month of 10th grade, I just didn't fit in. I felt like I didn't fit in. I fit in fine, actually, come to find out years later when I talked to my high school friends. But I joined the Army at 17. My parents had to sign. I got my GED after I got in, and still didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I felt called to serve in the military. So went in the Army, second generation. My son now is third generation Army, but went in, and I did go to college while I was in the service, got my GED also, and I had about 3.5 years of college now when it's all said and done. After I got out of the military, I was in Fort Riley, Kansas. So I went to school at K-State and wanted to be an architect. And that's where my path kind of started at K-State. And still wasn't 100% sure, but I just thought it'd really be cool to design buildings. I always said I'd never be a plumber because my dad was a plumber. So it's kind of apropos, but went to K-State for a couple of years, and then I switched over to after about the first year, I switched over to business marketing and management because I didn't have the creative side of my brain like I thought architecture was. I didn't know it was that much creative, but I should have in hindsight. So. But so I really liked business and the courses that I was taking, and met a girl in Topeka, moved up to Topeka, then met my wife playing softball, and 4 sons later. That's kind of how we are. But in that time when I moved to Topeka, I was looking for a job, and a guy that I knew was remodeling houses, so I kind of helped him. And we were doing everything from drywall to painting to flooring to the plumbing to whatever it needed. And the plumbing, even though I only worked a few summers with my dad and weekends here and there, like the plumbing came easier to me, and I didn't really have to think about it as much. And he's like, oh, you kind of know this. And I'm like, I kind of do. And then it just kind of went from there. It was weird that I was doing the plumbing and I liked it. And then I was like, oh, I'm kind of good at this. And so I went and applied at a local company for an apprenticeship just to see if I could. If you hear squeaking in the background, it'd be a dog with a dog toy. So, and I applied, and one of your questions was, were there any obstacles that you had to overcome? And it's kind of funny you said that, because I was like, no, I just kind of, and I was like, wait, no, I had to call the owner of that company once a week for about 6 weeks. I was referred to them, and I'd call and talk to the secretary, whose name was Karen. And I was like, hi, Karen, I heard you may not be hiring, but you may be looking for an apprentice if you find a good apprentice. She's like, oh, okay, I'll tell him. And we'll call you back. And I said, no, it's okay. I'll just check back next week. And she's like, okay, sounds good. And probably thinking I would never call back, I called back. Hey, Karen, I'm just checking in. Did you happen to talk? Oh, we haven't talked to Greg yet. And she's like, well, do you want me to call you back? I'm like, no, I'll check back with you next week. And I just did that for like 6 weeks. And then finally, like the 6 weeks, she's like, all right, come in. She's like, if you're going to be that consistent, no, he wants to talk to you. So then, yeah, I got into it. I got an apprenticeship. It wasn't a formal apprenticeship. It was a non-union company. So the apprenticeship is a lot different than union companies, and you learn more on the job than actual classroom and books, which is fine by me, because I love to learn that way anyway, is actually experiential learning. So I learned really fast. I did really well. I moved up fast. Became part owner of the last company I was at for the last 2.5 years. I was at it. And then I just, I was racking my brain, like knowing I could do it better. And I didn't have the control to do it better there. Even though I was part owner, I was a junior partner. So I couldn't make some of the changes that I wanted to make, even though I suggested them. And so I just said, hey, I'm going to start my own. I'm not going to take your people. I'm not going to take your customers. I'm just going to do my own thing. And that's when I started. It was Pat the Plumber at the time. So
there's a lot to unpack here. If you don't mind, I'd like to go back a little bit and just ask, how long were you in the military? You started classes while you were in the military, which is a great benefit, I think, of military service. But can you tell us how long you were in the military?
Sure. Yeah, I was active duty for 4 years and National Guard for 3.
Okay. And then to fast forward, you found out that not only were you good at plumbing, but you actually liked it. So what were some of the things that you enjoyed about plumbing?
I liked the analytical reasoning part of it. I liked the deductive reasoning part of it, but I liked the problem solving. I liked working with my hands. I liked being in the different climates, outside and inside. I love serving people. I mean, that's been that's always been a passion of mine, whether I knew it or not. It's just how I was hardwired. And I'm not, by all definitions, I'm probably more of an introvert by nature, but I love to serve others, whether it's, my people or the people that we serve, our customers or friends, family, whatever. That's just kind of how I'm wired.
Well, and to interject here, we actually met on a mountain trip where our sons, we literally climbed a mountain, and I did everything the wrong way. I mean, I had this huge pack. I didn't prepare for it. and talking about service to other. I think I would have died on the mountain, but Pat like grabbed my pack and helped me get up the mountain. So that was my first experience with your service to others. And I'm probably here as a result of that. But anyway, I do appreciate that about you, and I know it's true. And for full disclosure, we're also a customer of now called Pat. It was Pat the plumber when we started, but you said you were at the other company and you worked your way up. Can you tell us like how long that period was, and you started at the bottom? I mean, literally kind of entry level apprenticeship, informal apprenticeship program, and then you became part owner. Over what period of time was that, and what do you think they saw in you? I mean, clearly probably great customer service and hardworking and consistent, you mentioned, but were there other things, or what allowed you to progress kind of on that path, do you think? And what would you advise others who wanted to take a similar path?
Sure. So that the first company I worked for about 3.5 years, and that was the one that I kept calling to get in the door. And then I was recruited by another company in town, and that's where at the end, I was there for about 10 and a half years. And so I started out as a technician there, and I have a really, really strong work ethic, and I'm very, very driven. And that like really drove me. I didn't want to do what everybody else was doing. I wanted to do the best I could. And that's what's always fueled me. And so when I started there, I was a service technician. So did residential and commercial plumbing service. After I was there for a little while, probably a year or two, moved over to the remodeling section. And we did mostly residential plumbing remodeling. So home remodeling, we did the plumbing part of it, people adding a bathroom, remodeling a bathroom, or doing bigger projects. And I was in it. They were just kind of starting this remodeling part of the business. Now, we didn't do the drywall and all that kind of stuff. It was just purely plumbing, but it was just bigger projects for contractors specifically. And we grew that. I was the only plumber in it, and it was probably half of the time. Then it grew to pretty much the full time that I was doing remodeling. And then we kept growing it, and we had we had more than we worked than we needed to. So they actually made me the supervisor of that department, and did plumbing sales. So I'd meet with the contractors, see what they needed. Then I priced the job. So I was estimator too. And then continued down that path that grew. And then I became the plumbing service manager for the business. So that was overall the plumbing service technicians. And then I became the plumbing manager, which is the manager of all the plumbing, for the business. I have my master's license in plumbing, and I have my master's license in heating and air too. And then an opportunity arose to where at one point we were owned by a very large national corporation, and that corporation was exiting the home service business and selling off the locations back to the location presidents. And our location president came to us, the 4 managers, and said, "Hey, I have an opportunity to buy this business from corporate, and I'm not going to do it without all you guys on board." So he gave us some equity in the business. We had to make an investment, and we're all on board. So we did that for about 2.5 years.
Okay. And so then 2.5 years later, you had these ideas and you kind of wanted to do it your way.
Yep.
And at that point, you weren't really able to in the current situation. So you decided to start Pat the plumber or Pat. Just go through that thought process. I mean, obviously, we understand you wanted to kind of have your own thing, but it's a whole lot more than just wanting to do something and actually doing it, because a lot of people, a lot of people don't take the risk. Um, and so how did you kind of take that leap? And clearly you had experience, but what was your thought process, and how did it all come together?
Yeah. So I attribute it a lot to my wife. Um, Business decisions have always been kind of natural for me. And I don't know what it is, but I don't have to think about things as long. And it's just like it makes a lot of just things make sense. And so, like I could see opportunities in our current business and ways to improve. And literally, it was driving me nuts that we were making the same mistake over and over, expecting a different result. And I would come home and complain, and I'd be frustrated. And it was like, oh, this happened. And then finally, and I talked about starting my own business for a year or two or however long. And my wife finally said to me, and this is paraphrasing, this wasn't, but either shut up and start your own business or shut up about it. Stop complaining. And I was like, wow. And then she was like, look, no matter what happens, we're not going anywhere. We'll make it through it. We'll be fine. And we'll figure it out. And it's funny because I tell people this, but when my wife met me, she said, I'm not marrying you for your money. Like, when we met, we were young. I mean, we were young. Like, she was like late, like 19, and I was young 20s. And she's like, I'm not marrying you for your money. I'm marrying you for your potential. So, it's funny how our wives see potential in us when we can't see it in ourselves. So that's how it happened. So that was the impetus.
Now, and I'm not going to ask you how big your fleet is, but
Yeah.
clearly you've grown over the years. But so when you started with the new business, like how many staff? What did that look like? Was it? I mean, and then if you can, because you did start with plumbing, and now you've got heating and air, and so, but apparently you already knew that side of the business too. But you decided to start with plumbing. So how did that all kind of evolve over time?
Sure. So in May 2005, I started Pat the Plumber, and it was like I struggled trying to figure out a business name. And for the last couple of years, when I was in the field, people would call me Pat the Plumber. Oh, Pat the Plumber's coming to my house, and that's just like the name I took on. And then the guy that I was working with locally, Brad Passo, said, why don't we name your business Pat the Plumber? I was like, that'd be weird. He's like, no, not at all. And it's funny because there was a Roger the Plumber in Kansas City at the time. And I was like, man, I don't want to step on his toes. You know what I mean, with the plumber in the name. So I called Roger. He's like, absolutely not. He's like, I think it's a great name. And so that kind of cemented it. And we came up with a logo. And and then when we started, it was just me in a truck. I had the pickup truck that I had. I got it wrapped, and then I bought a white Ford Econoline, or a Chevy 1500 van, just a plain white van. Got it wrapped, and started. Yeah, and it was just me doing the plumbing. And up till about 6 years ago, that's all we did was plumbing. And we were really, really specific on what we do. We only do residential plumbing, heating and air, in service and replacement. So we don't do new construction. We don't do commercial. We don't do all this other stuff. We are really, really good at what we do, and that's all we do. Now our company size is 13, not including Generi, and we own our own building over on just one block east of Blind Tiger. But when we started, it was the basement, and the 2-car garage was my storage. And once a week I had to pay my helper to go over there and just sort it all out so Jen could get her car in there, because she'd let me know periodically. She's like, can't get in the garage. And I'm like, okay. And that's just how it was. And then it grew a little bit. We, had this office set up in the basement, figured out how to put my laptop and a printer in the van. And a lot of people helped, just tons of people helped. 2030 Club helped get me going. Just a lot. I mean, I developed a lot of relationships there. And, and they just grew. Like, our business plan was to grow 3 trucks in 3 years, and we grew in 18 months. Three trucks. So I think we have 12 trucks now. So very small office staff. We have a gal that's our service manager that she just got promoted. We have a dispatch service representative and a customer service representative. And then we have 2 estimators, 1 plumbing estimator, 1 heating and air estimator, and the rest are service techs. I think we have 2 HVAC service techs. We have 6 plumbers, drain cleaners, and whatnot.
For someone who thinks they might be interested in getting into plumbing or another trade, because they like to work with their hands, or they like the problem solving aspect of it, even if they don't think they want to own their own business, what would you recommend they do? We know that you just started calling consistently. Yeah. What are some of the other things that someone might do to get into this career?
Yeah. So when you're green and you just don't have knowledge about, like, you've never done it before, and you want to just kind of like, get a starting point. For our business, and I can't speak for other businesses, it is different across the country. There's no right or wrong. There's no standard norm. As far as on the heating and air side of things, we want a person to go through some type of vocational school. So there's Washburn Tech, there's Wichita, WTI, and both good schools. And it'll give you a really solid base of education for the heating and air trade. The plumbing, there aren't really any vocational schools for plumbing here in town, so we don't have a requirement on that. Now, our requirements for any person, and we are very, very, very particular about who we hire, because we hire for 2 things: core and culture. Okay, core is your core makeup as a person. These are things you can control. These are things that you developed over time. Your work ethic, your honesty, your integrity, all the things that you either have or you don't. It's not stuff that can be changed. It can be, but it's a whole lot of work. But we have to find people that fit that mold. And then culture, are they going to assimilate into what we built as a culture? Our people are tremendous. Like, we have every single person in our business is an A player, and we're a group of go-getters. We are exceptional at what we do, from the customer service part to the technical part. We train every week. We have one-on-one meetings every week. I have a one-on-one meeting with each technician in my business once a week for 15 minutes. And that's how important training is. And not to mention just technical training. I want to know personally and professionally, because one of our core values is personal and professional development. So, I want to know, like, how can I support you? What went good last week? What didn't go so good? What do you want to work on this week? And how can I support you? And that's, so somebody coming into the trade, you have to bring your A game to an interview, because you don't have much to come with. You know what I mean? If you don't have skills, if you don't have experience, then you have to you have to be on time. All the base stuff you can't miss that.
What percentage of applicants approximately don't come with their A game?
Oh gosh, it's kind of dumbfounding sometimes. I don't know if it's ambivalent. I don't know if it's just lack of caring. I don't know, but I would say probably 70 to 80% show up and they're not impressing me out of the gate. And that's what you have to do for an apprenticeship, is you have to make a statement of like, hey, I'm serious about this. I want to learn. I want to grow. I want to help the company. I want to help myself. I want to help my family, and I want to help others.
Yeah. So once let's kind of stay on the plumbing side for right now.
Yep.
Once they impress you in the interview, then what does the process look like for that? Well, let's step back a little bit. We actually hire for culture too, competence and culture is half of it, at least. And so we kind of base our culture on an ideal team player, Patrick Lencioni's book. So humble, and smart.
Hungry,
so
humble,
that's what
and
we're
smart.
looking for. Is that what you do as well?
Yeah, we do that, and culture index for our survey.
Okay. So there are questions you can ask in an interview to determine whether they're humble, hungry, smart. So apparently that's what you probably do during the interview process. So let's assume that they passed that. Then what does the next step look like for a new person, a new technician in your company?
Yeah, so we usually bring them in for at least 2 interviews. When we do hire them, we do have access. We're in a professional organization that's called Nexstar, and it's also their philanthropy is the explorethetrades.org website, and that's a great resource for anybody just even considering it. Go to explorethetrades.org and just take advantage of it. I mean, there's programs for military, there's scholarships. We contribute to a scholarship for people coming into the trades. But what ends up happening in our business is once they come in, and we do agree to hire them, we put them through our apprenticeship training program. And now that's changed dramatically, because what used to be all hands-on, and we had some books, and we have our operations manuals that outline exactly how we remove and install a faucet or a toilet or run a gas line. We have all documented procedures, but now we actually have online virtual learning, and they can go at their own pace, and they log into a portal and they go through the lessons, and there's 4 separate levels, and they get a financial increase, additional compensation at each level. And since they can do it at their own pace, so we do the virtual learning, and then we also back it up with the hands-on learning at the job, the next day. So they can grow. They have control over how fast they grow. in the profession, which is nice because it used to just be a time and grade kind of thing. We had to you have to serve 4 years to get your journeyman. The different levels are helper, apprentice, journeyman, and master. And a helper is kind of just like ditch digger, basic, real basic labor. Apprentice is kind of a higher version of that, a little more technical, learning the technical, doing some of the technical, doing some of the installation work with a licensed plumber. And then journeyman is the actual, when you get your license and you can start doing work on your own, installing water heaters, tankless water heaters, furnaces, that kind of stuff. I'm sorry, we're talking about plumbing. And then you can go to masters and take your master's test. Now, it used to be 4 years for journeyman, 3 years for master. That licensing requirement has changed. So I'm not positive. It differs by municipality. So.
Okay. Who can be a helper? I mean, is there an age requirement? What?
No age, no, just to be physically fit. I mean, you have to be able to do physical work. You have to be able to do problem solving. It's pretty open. I mean,
what is the demand right now? So, and can that be a summer job, or I don't know if someone, or do you need to kind of sign up for the full time? Are there part time opportunities at all at this point, or?
Sure. So yeah, we usually have one apprentice in each department at all times. We're constantly bringing up our own, and then when they graduate and go into a truck on their own, then we bring in another apprentice. As far as summer work, that kind of stuff, yeah, there's most companies need some type of summer help. I know construction companies like ones that do plumbing, new construction, that kind of stuff. I know a lot of those guys use helpers. I usually put an additional person on in the summer to help.
And you could say either specifically for Pat Plumbing or just kind of what the market is. If someone wants to start as a helper, how much might they expect at that point, understanding that that's the very entry level? And then as they progress, what is their earning potential?
Yeah, I mean it's $10 to $13 an hour to start. Just really depends on experience and knowledge, and but then it gives them an opportunity, if they're in the apprenticeship program, to move up to I think 14, 15, 16 in a relatively short amount of time, meaning like a year and a half, depending on what their own pace is, because it's based off their pace and what the effort they put into it. And then it can go up. I mean, we have, journeyman plumbers journeyman and master plumbers usually make about the same at our company, because masters really come into play when you're running a big job and you have to have one master per so many journeymen. Most of our stuff is smaller residential style work, so we don't have a whole big staffing like that on a job. But they can make. I have service techs that could make up to 100,000 a year, and that's not even including benefits. Our benefits are off the chart. I mean, we have paid holidays, paid vacation, paid birthday off, we have sick time. We have a discretionary day is what we call it. Now we have bereavement leave. We just started paternity and maternity leave paid for a week. I know that's not much time when you have a child, but it's still better than nothing. And yeah, we have a ton of benefits. Like,
And that's something we try to teach, that don't just look at the wage, look at the other parts of the package, because insurance is a huge part of it, especially if you're young and starting a family. And but um, on the you had mentioned on the heating and air side that there's a program, Washburn Tech, Wichita. How long is that program? Is that well? How long is that program generally?
yeah, I'm not exactly sure how long their programs are. 1 to 2 years is my guess. And when people come out of there, they're not guaranteed a job because when I'm looking for a candidate, I only want the top 10%. The top 10% of the plumbers in town. I only want the top 10% of the heating and air technicians in town. And as far as graduates from those programs, I want the best graduate from that program. I want the kid that was there every single day. I want the kid that was exceptional, showed effort, showed, his work ethic, and, constant, and be a constant learner, constantly wanting to know more, and just, truly wanting to be the best at, their trade.
Is the pay scale different on the heating and air side? If they're a top 10% coming out of the program?
Yeah, so we do start the heating and air techs out higher because they're basically coming over into a mid-level apprenticeship position. So they're not starting out at a helper position, with all the schooling and stuff like that. So they do start out, a few dollars more an hour right out of the gate.
Okay. So if a student is interested in pursuing one of these trades or maybe something else, they should go to explorethetrades.org, and that will give them a kind of a taste of what each of the trades may do. Is that accurate? Or
Correct.
okay.
Yep.
Okay. And then if they're specifically interested in heating and air, or I know Washburn Tech has a number of great programs. So hopefully they're talking to their guidance counselors about that. I know we've taken students on tours over there. So what are some other, I think you've given our students a lot of great advice, but is there anything else you think that is going to give them an edge perhaps in pursuing a career in the trades, or just generally life? I think you've covered a lot of things, but I want to make sure if there's another gem that we missed that we pull it out of you.
Yeah, I can't I can't emphasize the importance of your first impression. I truly cannot. I mean, like it or not, we're not supposed to judge people, right? But every single person does it. You are representing yourself and your future when you show up to the door. So how you prepare, how you show up is everything. And yeah, that's crucial. I mean, to get into any trade, any job, period. It doesn't matter what job. Like, if you don't care enough about yourself to take that time, they're not going to care more for you than you are.
Is that one of the reasons all of your folks wear uniforms? Because they're kind of, or last time I saw white, very crisp, very professional. I assume it's about first impression, and also they're in your home. So
Yeah.
is that kind of the thinking behind that? Or
Yeah. So we're a professional company and we have to be inside and out. Like we can't have any loose ends. We can't have, we look professional, but we don't act professional, or we look professional, but we don't know our stuff. We don't know our technical. I mean, that has to be through and through. And that's, literally for the last 16 years, what, we've just constantly tried to raise the bar on is how can we be a better version of ourselves than we were yesterday? And oh my gosh, we have, I've, we do so much personal and professional development. I encourage, we're teaching meditation, we're teaching, different types of things, which like we talk about the personal and professional, and to me, they're almost one and the same. It's both and like how you are personally is how you're going to show up professionally, and vice versa. If you're having a hard time at home, that's going to come straight to work, and vice versa. If you have a bad day at work, you're going to bring that home. So we truly work on people, and help them, with self-improvement.
Limited opportunities, we understand that. But if someone was interested in being a helper for the summer, when should they even try to start inquiring about that?
Yep, there's a contact page on our website. If they go to our contact page on the website, they can either chat in or they can go to the contact page and fill out a form. There's an employment page on our site for careers, and if they find that, then there's another form they can fill out there too. There's a video they can watch. There's more information on there about what we do and how we do it. So,
well, thanks again, Pat. Appreciate your time, and it's been really fascinating. A lot of times our students just don't know what opportunities are out there, and I think you've really opened the window on this one. So we really appreciate it. We have local events. Maybe we'll get some of the Pat Plumbing, Heating, and Air folks to judge some of our events sometime. So anyway, we'll definitely be looking for the orange and blue vans driving around town. So thank you.
Sounds great. Yeah, absolutely, Chuck. Happy to help.